In this video, I'm going to show you 2 ways how to draw your own Live2D Vtuber avatar. You can choose which method works better for you based on your own art style and also just your preference. If you find this video helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing. There's a few things you should do before you start drawing. You should have the design of your character ready. It is a lot easier to start drawing it if you have a clear idea of what your model is actually supposed to look like. You should create a couple different options and see what you like best, because the first option might not always be the best one. And then you should choose your program of choice. I use Clip Studio Paint, but also Photoshop or Paint Tool SAI or even free options like Krita should work just fine. As long as you can save the work as a Photoshop file, it should work. So there's 2 different ways you can go about this. I'm sure there's other ways too, but these are the 2 ways that I have drawn my models so far. So the first is to draw the entire thing first and then afterwards cut it. I prefer this way because it suits my painterly style a little bit more. It's easier to just draw the thing and afterwards cut and repaint the parts that need that. And the second way is to separate each part already as you draw them, and you just draw each part that you want to be separate in the model. You draw those on their own layers as you go along, so you don't need to cut the model afterwards, and you can basically have it ready as soon as you have finished drawing. So I'm going to be showing you both ways, how I usually go about them, and you can then choose whichever style suits your style or looks just easier and nicer way to go about it. So let's get started with the first way first. So I find it the easiest to just set up a very rough base, just a full body base. It doesn't even need to have correct proportions as of now. It's just that I will have a easier time building the full body model as I go along, because if I don't do this, I usually find it harder later on to get the proportions right. So when I already have the full body sketch, I can easily see where things look wrong, and I find it just a little bit easier and faster to edit as I go along after I have already built up the initial base for it. And this really rough sketch part is where I find is the best time to really just, you know, fix everything and making sure things look all right in terms of body proportions, because this is really just a sketch still. There's not a lot of detail, so I can just go around and, you know, select parts, move them around as much as I like. I don't need to fix any colorings or stuff. So this is the part where I like to spend the, well, almost the most time, really. Just, you know, it's the foundation of everything, and I want it to look, you know, all right here, so I don't need to, you know, go back later and realize that, oh my god, my arms look way too short as they did, you know, initially. So spend some time on this part, just scrolling or, you know, zooming in, zooming out, just taking a good look at the full body shot, and, you know, just don't be afraid to select big parts of it and just, you know, resize everything if you need to. This is the part where everything goes and you don't have to worry about ruining anything yet. So at this point you should be pretty okay with the sketch, and depending on the style you can start going for the line art now. But my style is not really heavy on the line art, so I instead just go in straight with the colors and painting. Basically at this point I just paint this as any other illustration I would. So if you want to, you can, you know, color in on separate layers if you need to, or if you want to, you can do everything on one layer. This is really just, you know, use whatever painting or coloring style that works best for you and your style. But in the end, this is all going to be on one layer, so, you know, do whatever works best for you at this point. But just go ahead and, you know, draw and color this model as you would any normal character illustration. Once you're happy with how your model is looking, you have essentially finished. Congratulations, you just finished your VTuber avatar. Well, at least drawing of it. With this method, now the next step is essentially to cut the model. If you would like to have a more detailed tutorial on how to cut models after they have been drawn this way and how to repaint some of the parts, I can do a tutorial on that too. Just leave a comment below. So the second method starts very similarly to the first one, so just go ahead and draw your sketch. Try to get as much detail in as possible again, so that will make the rest of the process a lot easier. With this method, I went in with a cleaner line art and coloring style because I find that this method works for that kind of art style a little bit better. After I'm done with the initial sketch, I actually go in with a second sort of sketch, but this time I use different colors for each part of the model. So you can see here I'm lining each part of the hair with a different color, just so I can have a easier time seeing which parts of the model are going to be separated into different layers. Doing different colored lines like this makes it a little bit easier for me to see which parts are going to be separated onto different layers. After I've color plugged each part of the model, I start going in with the actual line art. I finished the line art of each piece and also lay down the flat colors just so I can have a clearer understanding of how the parts are looking once I lay them all together. Most of the parts, like different pieces of hair and the eyes, I draw using the symmetrical ruler on Clip Studio Paint. And after I've finished drawing them, I separate them on their own layers afterwards. So right piece of hair, left piece of hair, right eye, left eye, and so on. One thing that I personally feel that with this method, you do need to have prior planning once you start drawing it, because you have to make all the different layers as you draw, and it's not as easy to separate them into different ones later if you decided that you want some parts to have a little bit more movement. So I find that this method works on either simple models that don't have a lot of different moving parts in them, or if you have a really good understanding on which parts of the Live2D model you need to have moving. Once I'm done with all the flat colors, I go in with the shading, and as I did with the previous parts, I go in and shade one part, go on, move on to the next, and after I'm done with those, I just kind of unhide all the layers and see how they look together. Once you have everything shaded, you're pretty much finished. Afterwards, I would double check to make sure that every single part is on its own layer, because I've had issues where I've realized when I'm doing rigging in Live2D that I have my blush set on the same layer. So make sure that everything is on their own layer if you have parts for left and right side of the model. So those were the two ways to draw in your Live2D Vtuber models. I really hope this video was helpful, at least a little bit. I would really appreciate if you liked this video and left a comment if you have any questions or just found any useful information on this. Thank you so much for staying until the end, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!